Nobody taught me about bad relationships, or good relationships for that matter. So I learned it all the hard way. And of course it didn't help that my mom let my boyfriend move in with me when I was 14. So after almost a year of being abused by my live-in boyfriend, and the other piece of work that I dated before him, I was still stuck in the same cycle even after I got rid of Jamie. I mean, I had nobody. Jamie had completely isolated me, so I lost all my friends. And the thing about being a young girl with no friends, no support, is that getting a boyfriend is kind of like the cheat code to getting a best friend. Like, it's hard to develop relationships and friendships, and to get to that best friend level platonically with a girl. But there's always a boy just around the corner that would be willing to throw their whole lives away to have the chance to date a girl. And that's the cycle that I was stuck in. Getting into these romantic relationships with guys and trying to make them everything that I needed. And that just was never gonna work. But it didn't help that most of the guys I dated were assholes on top of that. The first guy that I dated after I got out of my relationship with Jamie was this boy we'll call Cade. He was actually a friend of mine who I thought was really cute, so I was surprised when he asked me out. I wasn't really trying to get into a relationship, but I decided to just go along with it. Cade and I started meeting up at random places and just hanging out and talking, but somehow it just turned into us hooking up, which wasn't what I was intending going into it. I had a tendency to just go along with things. Regardless, Cade was nice, and he was actually my age for once. And we had a lot in common. We were already friends before this. One day, he told me that his dad was going to drive us to go on an actual date. I had maybe been on 1 or 2 dates before. And the sad thing is, I thought that that was something that was pretty much reserved for grown-ups, which is just ridiculous when you think about the alternative being hooking up in a park bathroom. When I tell you I had no education on dating or anything, I really had no education on any of it. But it felt nice to actually go on a date and to actually meet this boy's family and not just be some secret that he had to sneak out to see or something. So I was pretty surprised when Cade one day texted me that he was breaking up with me. I wasn't too crushed, but I was really surprised. It felt like he was the first semi-quality boy that I had dated, and now he was breaking up with me? Do boys break up with girls? Isn't it usually the other way around? Is there something wrong with me? But I wasn't really trying to get into a relationship so soon after Jamie in the first place, so I just moved on. I genuinely wasn't even thinking about guys, but things just kept falling in my lap. Maybe it was the universe testing me and I was just repeatedly failing it, but I didn't see that back then. At this point, I was 16, and my brother, who is 20 years older than me, and his fiance at the time, invited me to go hang out with them and said that they were going to bring along one of their friends for me to kind of go on a little date with. It was going to be a double date. This friend of theirs was 28 years old. He was 12 years older than me, and I was a minor. I was not into guys that much older than me, but I decided to just go along with it. I mean, if my grown adult brother and his fiance thought that this was appropriate, then maybe I was just that mature. Not to mention, I just got out of a 2-year relationship with a guy that I lived with for over a year. So, I mean, in a way, I really was light years ahead of the kids my age, right? So for our double date, we went to this place that had pool tables and a bar. Of course, I wasn't old enough to drink, but my brother snuck me a beer. And as much as I never liked beer and as boring as this pool place was, I felt super grown up. After we were done with the date, we all went back to my brother's car, and he was driving to our respective homes to drop us off. He and his fiance in the front seat, and me and this 28-year-old in the back. I was feeling tipsy, so I decided to go along with it when this 28-year-old started making advances on me, and we made out. My brother and his fiance would occasionally look back and laugh and giggle. They like each other. Oh my God, we set them up together. My brother parked the car in this guy's apartment complex, and he invited me to come stay the night at his house. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought about it. Not because I wanted to, but because I wanted to be someone who didn't turn down adventures. I wanted to be mature and brave. But thank God I ended up saying no. And when I was at home by myself that night, I was feeling really conflicted about this. I knew in my heart that a 28-year-old shouldn't have been dating me. And I knew that I wasn't even attracted to someone that old. But regardless, I decided to add him on Facebook. And once I was on his page, I took a look around. Of course, the first thing I noticed was his profile picture. Now see, he knew my brother because they were both security guards. But this guy's profile picture was a bathroom mirror selfie showing his whole body with one foot on the counter with no clothes on, except I'm assuming his work-assigned holster and pew-pew. I genuinely couldn't figure out whether this picture was supposed to be goofy or if it was supposed to be hot, but it was giving me the ick, for sure. But the thing that really sealed the deal for me on this guy was when I realized that we had a ton of friends in common. Now, sometimes that happens in my city. Like, you'll know someone from work on this side of town, and then you notice you guys have friends in common with someone you knew in elementary school on the other side of town. Like, that does happen. But this guy had, like, I don't know, 50 friends in common with me or something. So I looked, and it was girls my age that I knew from all over town. Girls I knew in middle school over here, and girls I knew from high school over on this side of town. And then I just kept scrolling through the rest of his friends list, and it was just girls, teenage girls. Hundreds and hundreds of teenage girls. But luckily, that's what it took for me to realize that this guy was a creep. Not for him literally making out with me, but to see that he was a creep with other girls too. But unfortunately, I still just didn't know how to say no. As much of a cliche as that phrasing is, it was true. I always second-guessed myself and doubted myself and thought, well, sure, I don't want to do this thing with this person, but is it socially acceptable for me to turn them down? Did I lead them on and now I would be rude to say no? So one day I was hanging out with this guy from my neighborhood. His name was Scott. We would do spice together, and he knew Jamie from back when we would all take the school bus together. That's the only reason I ever started talking to him or the other boys in my neighborhood, was because Jamie started talking to them. Otherwise, I didn't have much in common with them, and I probably wouldn't have really been friends with them. I mean, this same group of boys watched one day as Jamie dragged me home by my arm, yelling at me to not talk to other people when he's not around. Scott had seen that and said and did nothing. So I knew that Scott wasn't really my friend. But I was trying to get out there and socialize and try to make some kind of friends. So when he invited me over one day to go to his house to smoke, I said, sure. I was not attracted to Scott at all. I would never even think of him in that way. So when I was in his room and we had finished smoking, and he came to sit next to me on his futon and put his hands on my thighs, I started going through all the things in my head telling me, oh, I accidentally led him on. I guess I shouldn't have come to his house and gone to his bedroom alone, because now I realize that I was giving him these green lights, and saying no now would be a social faux pas, and I would probably really hurt his feelings, and it probably took him a lot of courage to even make a move on me, and now I'm probably going to hurt his feelings and ruin his confidence for the rest of his life if I say no. So as much as I didn't want to do anything with him, it felt easier to just go through the motions completely spaced out than to say no. And that's what I did. And of course, I never went to his house again. Afterwards, I felt really stupid, and I hated that I had done that. But it felt like that was the price that I was supposed to pay for accidentally leading him on. And sadly, that wouldn't be the last time that I did something like that. It wouldn't be until years later, as an adult, that I learned of the concept of being a demisexual, which sounds really sounds silly, and it sounds like, oh, why do we need a word for this? But really, it is helpful, because I didn't know that it was okay to not like hooking up, to not like casual situations like that. For years later, I would still try to participate in hookup culture because my friends had a good time doing that, and I probably just had to push through the nervousness until I got into the groove of it, and then it would be exciting and it would be fun and worth it. But that just wasn't the case for me. And I had to learn the hard way that sometimes you can say yes to things and you can put yourself in situations that traumatize you the same way as if you had been SA'd, except that technically they didn't SA you because you said yes and you went along with it. And so it's almost like you SA'd yourself, because just because you said yes doesn't mean that those feelings and that lasting trauma doesn't exist. So I encourage you to say no. But anyway, that's a little piece to the whole story, and we're gonna get into what kind of happened next to me in life. And it's still not over with the Jamie saga after that, because years later, his current girlfriend would reach out to me and tell me what she had been going through with him. So thank you for listening, and let me know if you're here for the next part.